Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to take our third look through my larger format hardbacks, making of books, British annuals, that sort of thing, and giving them all a good clean polish and get them as tip-top as we possibly can. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay then, so we'll start off with the Blue Peter book. This is book number 21. So as you know, each time we've done one of these videos, we've pulled 10 Blue Peter annuals out to have a look at, just so we're not doing all 40 in one hit. And like the last sort of batch of 10, I'm imagining these don't have much work to do, if anything. Just a bit of a, there's a Colin Baker there, just a bit of a polish at the end, and we'll brush down the spines in there. But that one seems absolutely fine. More Doctor Who there. Yeah, good stuff. That was the new lineup, wasn't it? It was Simon Groom, Peter Duncan and Janet Ellis. This was a period where I was watching Blue Peter. And this is probably when I stopped, because I don't really remember him at all. As I said, I can't imagine these are that anything wrong with these, so we'll zoom through them. Yeah, and there's a little 45p there, so might as well get that out while we're here. Looks like it's in pencil anyway, so it should come out all right. Yeah, it's coming out okay. So, just yesterday, as I filmed this, I did publish a new video on the other channel. And basically, I've got a few more details about my new role within my, well, it's my new job within my current employer. And basically, I am going to need to go back to working full-time for probably about a month or so while we do the training. Which is not the end of the world, but it does mean that potentially my output is going to have to drop a bit on the main channel as well as this one. So I'm envisioning that I'm only going to be able to do 2 videos during the month of April on this channel. So I'll do one every fortnight. And on the other channel, I'm going to be dropping to just 2 videos a week in total, simply because I'm going to be working 5 days a week and I just won't have time to get them organised unless I put out really, really short videos, which may actually work. We'll wait and see, basically. So don't panic, because after the training period is done, the good news is I can then go permanently part-time, which is what I'm doing now, as long as I want, which is great news. So I'll be able to do these videos going forward without too much pressure on time. So the only real sort of question mark over the videos on this channel is if the views, get any better, or if the channel stops growing completely. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The jury's still out on that one, but I'd hope to keep them going, if at all possible. That's all right. I don't particularly want to stop them if I can help it. But it does seem that because I do publish one of these once a week, some viewers are just, they struggle to keep up. One a week is quite a bit. And there's lots of other stuff out there as well that people like to watch. So the backlist has had lots of views, going forward. So people are still obviously working their way through all the content. So it may well be that going like fortnightly may not be a bad thing. I won't shut it down or anything. I just do it every other week, in which case that would be we could perhaps have a little experiment on that. So just let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Just a few more of these Blue Peter. I mean, I don't know any of these presenters. I'd already long stopped watching Blue Peter. I'd grown up and left home by the time these were out. This one doesn't even feel like it's been opened before. It feels brand new. I said the majority of these Blue Peter books I did buy as a set. It was literally all 40 books for like 20 quid. Now, admittedly, some of them were a bit on the hammered side, but even so. And what's this here? It's got a little insert. This one must have come from W.H. Smith's. But really, I think with all the annuals, it was just the very earliest, just the very, very earliest ones which had a little bit of wear. The sort of in the first sort of 7 or so, wasn't it? I think possibly he was the presenter who may have got fired for his drug use. I think, but I can't remember for sure. Yeah, these feel almost brand new. They really, really do. Yeah, that feels like virtually mint. And the last one, I mean, it feels so different to what the feel of the books that I've ever owned. Yeah, these are virtually mint. So, all part of the collection. This was the 2000 one, so even that's 23 years old. I suppose what we ought to do, give these. I think we'll give them the brush treatment, so I can do like a few at a time. And then once we've done the whole pile, we'll then go back and give them a polish. But I'll just do the actual going through and brushing as the stage one. But that's not too bad. Condition-wise, they seem okay. 3 more. The other thing that does happen, the later books here, they change size. So the format is larger. Not sure why. They did start to go through different publishers. They weren't, the early ones were published by the BBC up to, they were up to number 22. Then they started moving around a little bit. But yeah, these are the very, very large annuals. And they've never been cleaned at all since I got them, so it's good to have them like this. Now, this was a great, great book, Blue Peter Behind the Badge, and it was written rather by Alex Lagar, and Alex Lagar was basically Biddy Baxter's number 2 on the show, and I helped him launch this book. So I was at the time a book buyer for a national book chain, and I got this one into all the bookshops up and down the country, and I did a signing in my own store at the time in Exeter. There we are, to Jules, to whom I owe a great debt. Very many thanks for all your help with this book. Best wishes, Alex Lagar. December 2012. Which is pretty cool. And he also gave me a little envelope full of Blue Peter badges, original Blue Peter badges, which I've still got tucked away somewhere in like a jiffy envelope. So his book was like a little history, well, not even a little history, but a history of the of his involvement on the show for like over 20 years. Really, really great book. It is a fan. If you're a Blue Peter fan, you absolutely have to pick up a copy of this one. It's great, you know. Not sure how difficult or easy it would be to get. I only ever had the one printing, as far as I know. But yeah, he was a really, really nice guy, and very pleased to have that one. Now this one here, the Jet Annual. Let me just rearrange these books a little. This Jet Annual, absolutely fantastic, and I remember having this one as a kid. When I was about 5 or 6, I went into hospital for an operation, and they had a copy of this one sort of in the children's ward, and I always remembered it. Jet was a very short-run British comic. I don't think it had many issues, maybe about 30 or 40, which I've got in a digital form. I haven't got any of the Jet comics, but this was the annual that they produced this year, and I remember it absolutely vividly. In fact, going through it now, as soon as I open it, everything comes flooding back to me. It's one of those books that is so nostalgic. You know, you get that now and again, where a book that you read as a kid comes back and you get to discover it again in later life, and you realise what a great book it was. So that's what this one does for me. And I read it cover to cover, and it's absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Even the cartoons I can remember sort of vividly, you know. But that actually seems a really lovely copy of that one, much better than the one I used to have. So I said I bought this one a few years back as one of those annuals that I definitely wanted to reacquire, as it were. Right, I need to rearrange the camera a little bit because we've not got a lot of room here. So now, this was a fantastic annual. This is one of the original, I think this is the first Man from U.N.C.L.E. annual. And you may notice it's been signed along the front there by Robert Vaughan. And lots and lots of modelling and dirt sort of on the covers there and on the back, in fact. So this one is definitely going to benefit from having a good clean. Looks like the spine may have come away a bit. This would have been back from the days when you used to find these annuals at boot sales and things like that. So yeah, I think I'm going to pop a little bit of glue just along there, just to firm that up a little bit, because it has come away slightly. And obviously I'm not going to bother changing this one because it's signed, and there's no way I'm going to be able to get another signed one back, is there? So I'm just going to squeeze some glue into the gap here. Just to keep the sort of the cover in as good as possible. Because I can't imagine that he signed that many of these. He probably signed some. He did at least, I think he did at least 3 sort of an event with Robert Vaughan sort of appearances when he was in the UK. And he did the one very, very big memorabilia show at the NEC. And that was where all my stuff got signed during that week. Because what happened, George and I, he was my business partner at the time, we ran a sort of a collector's shop. The chap who brought him over, they wanted some memorabilia because he was doing some Man from U.N.C.L.E. memorabilia, because he was doing appearances on like the Big Breakfast and some other TV shows, and he was also doing his travelling talks. So he said, yeah, absolutely, we'll send up our stuff, and if you could get some of it signed during the week, then that would be fantastic. And that is exactly what happened. So during the week that he was over, Robert Vaughan himself signed, well, he signed virtually everything, you know, which was fantastic. Yeah, not the greatest of condition, that one. Here's the second one. Once again, it's been signed. This one feels a little bit more robust. And these were sort of typical of the time, weren't they, these U.N.C.L.E. annuals? They were the usual mixture of sort of spy, comic strip and text stories. A little bit of mottle in there, but generally that seems okay. So that just, once again, needs a brush and a careful polish so we don't wreck it. This one's also signed again. Very, very dusty along the top there. So it's going to super benefit from its brush down in a minute. Nothing on the puzzle page. Even the crosswords undone. Well, that's a novelty item, isn't it? And it's funny how the Man from U.N.C.L.E. nowadays has really, I wouldn't say fallen out of favour, but you just don't see it. It's never ever on TV. At least very, very rarely. No idea why. Maybe I should go back and watch a few and see if I can figure out why. I mean, obviously they're going to be dated now, but you know, it hasn't stopped the James Bond films being mega popular. So, not really sure why the Man from U.N.C.L.'s fallen out of favour. But that's okay. And we have got, as well as that was the 4 British annuals, they did do a couple of these storybooks. This is the television picture storybook, which I don't believe I actually owned this when Robert Vaughan came over, which is probably why it's not signed. But I think this was Gold Key Comic reprints. So the American Gold Key Comics were reprinted in here. It was something that they could have, because the annuals were predominantly around during Christmas, it was something that could be around throughout the year. And I think this was possibly the first one, and that was the second one. But this one has been signed, so that's cool. So that's pretty good. So 6 of my large format Uncle books were all signed by Robert Vaughan, so that's super cool. I see it's got a few tears in though. Oh well, I'm not gonna mind. 1967. Well, if you ask me, they're all pretty darn cool. So let's give them the brush, because the brush, well, is going to do wonders for these, because they really are. You sort of see the level of dust along the top is, blimey, pretty severe. So these really are going to benefit. There we are. And once we've done the dusting, look at the dust on that. And then hopefully it shall just disappear. Needs a bit of an extra brush, this one is so bad. And they all need a good polish as well, so these are going to vastly look improved. I've got to admit, the stuff that I've done large format wise, when I look at it on the shelf now, it does look absolutely great. So I'm really pleased with the work that we've done on these large format books. I'm off to film a science fiction collection tomorrow, as I film this today, in Dorset. And the guy he's a collector himself, but he's also a dealer. And his stock, from what I've seen, is incredibly well presented. Everything is absolutely immaculate. All bagged. I mean, he has got paperback stock as well, so I've got no idea really the sort of condition of his paperback stock, but if his hardback stock is anything to go by, I think we're going to be in for a treat. So I'm travelling there tomorrow. I'm going to film it all. Shouldn't take too long to film. It's in a new location. He's just sort of moved there, and everything's quite well lit, and it's on nice purpose-built bookcases, so it's about as good as you're going to ever get. I mean, he hasn't really got a website. Doesn't sell on eBay. So the only way you can buy books off this guy is by like emailing him your wants list, really, which is a bit old school. But he's not. He's like, I think he's a teacher by trade, so you know, he's not a full-time dealer or anything. But it's going to be fascinating to have a look anyway. Right, I wonder how many of my viewers have heard of this book, Masquerade, by Kit Williams. So this one came out, I believe, in the early 80s. Let's just check the date here. I think it was the early 80s. In fact, it doesn't look like... Oh, yes, we are. 1979 and reprinted 79. So what this was... Well, this basically captured the nation by storm in its day, because you could actually find, I think it was like a... yeah, that was the prize. It was like this golden 18 karat gold bit of jewellery, that sort of hair there. And if you could figure out the clues that are in the pictures here, you could actually go and find it. And it was eventually found after a few subtle hints were dropped. So the book became a real sort of bestseller on the back of it. It's quite a fascinating story. If you look up Masquerade by Kit Williams on YouTube, you'll find a couple of videos which have basically summarised the process, but it was found in the end, and well, this was the original book. Look at that, 50p. But yeah, it was quite it was one of those like event books at the time. It really was, and it was like it was a real life treasure hunt. I suppose that's the way to describe it, you know. And I know recently, like in the last few years, probably 2019, they did the 40th anniversary. I vaguely remember it at the time, but I do remember being fascinated by the story in later years, you know. And the book itself is nothing too special. I mean, the artwork is lovely, but it was just one of those books that made a big impact on sort of popular culture at the time, so it's sort of worth having, definitely, you know. The copy's not too bad, even though I think it probably came from a charity shop with its 50p inside. But all of these, you know, they're all going to benefit from that great polish in a minute. This is much more modern, probably the most modern book we'll see today. The Making of Master and Commander. These are based on the Jack Aubrey novels by Patrick O'Brian, which is a great nautical series. Not my favourite, but they are the most accurate, I believe. I think they're great. Well, maybe the Julian Stockwell ones are also hyper accurate as well. It was a shame they only did, they basically combined two of the 19 books into the one movie that they did, Master and Commander. But I can sort of understand why, because some of the books are actually a little bit, I don't think they film very well. They're not all action adventure sort of thing, you know. But I enjoyed it. I like all sort of nautical books. You'll probably know my love of the Hornblower novels, for example. Quite a bit of dust accumulated on that one. But yeah, Master and Commander, I didn't mind that at all. And because there's no more Jack Aubrey books, Patrick O'Brian has passed away now, I tend to read about one a year till I get through them. And I think I'm on number 12 now. Cool stuff. Right. Next, our mission, should we decide to accept it, is to clean up my Mission Impossible annuals. So, big fan of Mission Impossible, huge fan of it, absolutely love the series. I used to be quite religious and have quite a bit of memorabilia, such as there was, because there wasn't a lot released for Mission Impossible. But now I've only got the books and the paperbacks. I used to have some records, about 4 or 5 records. And some other bits of memorabilia, some like press packs and stuff. But there isn't a lot for Mission Impossible, the 60s show, particularly in the UK. This was the one that came out for season 1, because it's not got Peter Graves in. Wow, that's certainly dirty. This probably hasn't been done since I picked it up in the 80s, I would imagine. As long as I've got the dust off and there's nothing inside, all we need to do is give these a really good polish in a minute to finish the job. Now this was the second one, and now we've got Peter Graves in it. These were really common, so I can see my examples aren't pristine in any way. They're sort of a little bit sort of, you know, VG-ish, you know. But that's okay. It's not like I'm going to be sat down reading them every night or anything. That's got a little bit of pencil there. So a friend of mine, back in the 90s, he became very friendly with an actress called Hazel Court. Now, she was a British actress who emigrated to LA, and he was helping Hazel in her later years track down all her old movies and TV appearances, and I actually found a couple for him, some obscure stuff that she was in, and he took copies of it and took them out to Hazel Court herself. Now, he went out to LA, and as I said, he got really friendly with her, and she just put him up in her house. You know, he said, "Oh yeah, you can stay over," sort of thing. So he's there one day. They've got up for breakfast, and he's having breakfast with Hazel. The door should go. He said, "Oh, Hazel, you home?" She said, yeah, come on in. Who should walk in with a tray of eggs for her but Peter Graves? He was her next door neighbour. Can you believe it? And they had a very relaxed sort of relationship, neighbour relationship. They would just sort of pop into each other's houses, sort of thing. How nuts is that? My mate said he couldn't believe it. He dropped his toast. He's like, wow. Now, this is the last one that they did in the UK, and this one's once again not great. It's sort of got been squashed on the spine there, which has caused it to split, and I can't do anything about that, sadly. I can, however, give it a darn good clean in a minute, because these 3 Mission Impossible hands, I've had them so long. Evidently look at this. My standards weren't up to scratch. This one's got current. I'm actually going to put this on a wants list to upgrade, because this one really is quite rough. I'll give it a clean for now, but I don't really like my annuals to be in low grade. Just because these British annuals, for some reason, they're just not as hard to find as they used to be. I think it's just because of eBay. These sorts of books are much more readily available, and I'm certain something like this could be picked up for less than a tenner. I'd be amazed if I couldn't find one for less than that. With a bit of patience, really nice ones. So I'm not going to fret over it, because a better one will come along. This was perhaps the best ever guidebook to Mission Impossible, published by Box Tree, and Box Tree reran the entire run of Mission Impossible, and this is just a great book. I remember selling this one just under 500 pages, every single episode, including the new Mission Impossible, where the series came back. Jane Badler was in it, a very ancient Peter Graves at the time was still in it, and what's his name? His son was in it. Greg Morris, he was called, yeah. So Greg Morris's son was in the revival as well. So the new Mission Impossible, only around for 2 seasons, it's actually pretty good as well. Yeah, Jane Badler was taking on Barbara Baines' role. You might know her from V. She was Diana in V. So this one in its 30 years has picked up a little bit of spotting along the spine. That's my fault, just how it's been stored in various sort of bed sits as I've moved around over the years. Not the end of the world. So still a great book. If I watch an episode of Mission Impossible, I always read the Mission Impossible dossier entry on it first. Now this one I did actually do a dedicated video on my other channel, because this was a great book and I absolutely loved it as a kid. Mysteries of the Unknown. It was sort of about sort of unexplained, basically. It was books that were published by us, but it was 3 books put into one. So I'm pretty sure, although I didn't give it a specific clean before I filmed it, let's have another look through, because it's absolutely great. Lots and lots of people remember this book. That was like a book on its own, the UFO one. Then there was one on ghosts, and there was one on monsters. And the page in the ghosts one was this one. This is the page everyone remembers, because it looks as if there's like ghosts in the picture. Who can tell, eh? Who can tell? Yeah, that's it, book 2, and then that's the last one. So this is my original copy, and internally this one's absolutely fine. It will, however, once again benefit from I reckon I gave this one a polish before I filmed it, or at least a brush, but we'll give it a go again. To be on the safe side. Now this next one is also a fairly recent book, Postcards from the Boys. What I'm going to do, I'm going to rearrange the camera so we've got a little bit more room for these final few books. So yeah, so this is another absolutely fantastic book, and one that I really love. So the story behind it goes, it's by Ringo Starr, and he was moving house when he I guess he had quite a big house, when he found in like a chest a bundle of postcards that were all the postcards that the other Beatles had sent him when they were on their travels around the world. So these are postcards from George Harrison, Paul McCartney and John Lennon, Yoko, that had been sent to Ringo over the years, and he'd saved them all, and they're all, as you can see, absolutely incredible. There's one there with a little John Lennon doodle on. Absolutely incredible, you know. In the same chest, he found his original Sgt. Pepper outfit as well, from his Sgt. Pepper photo shoot. Very, very nice indeed. Great stuff, eh? If you like the Beatles, it's a really, really great book to track down. I think it was a bestseller, so I don't think it's difficult to get hold of. I don't know, mine's got like the hologram cover. I don't know if that's harder to get than any other edition, but I bought it when it came out. Postcards from the Boys, and yeah, it's a great, great one. This is a bit of a blast from the past. The Radio 1 annual. And not many names you'll recognise. I mean, I don't suppose. Tony Blackburn's still with us, isn't he? Thankfully, no sign of Jimmy Savile. I did check this one beforehand, because else it wouldn't be featuring on the channel. But it was all the sort of, I think it was 1967. I think Radio 1 started. Prior to that, there was Radio Caroline. There's John Peel. Radio Caroline. It's a great, great book, this one. I've got a few books like this, sort of on top of the Pops, and on the Now That's What I Call Music album series as well, which I also really, really like. Look at the outfits, man. They're brilliant, isn't it? It's a good old book, this one. There's a very young Kenny Everett. Mary Hopkins. Dave Lee Travis. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. And Tony Blackburn. It's great, isn't it? It's a pretty cool album. That really sort of the period of 1967, which is my sort of dream period for music. Some of my all-time favourite albums got released in 1967. You had Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles, The Doors by the Doors, Surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane, Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix, the first 13th Floor Elevators album, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. What a year 1967 was. Just superb. And yeah, a lot of my favourite music comes from that period. And the last one we're looking at is this. It's actually my wife's book, one that I bought her, I hasten to add. She was a big fan of Sex and the City. She quite likes the revival of it, but this one came out in 2002, and it's actually quite a lavish production. It's got like this like pink alligator skin cover there. It looks like you're stroking an iguana or something like that. And it's just like a little overview of the series, some of the best bits, key moments and things like that. Once again, it wasn't around very long, but it was one of those books that was sort of published, I believe, as like a Christmas gifty book. And yeah, I mean, I remember it starting in the 90s, and at the time I was about the same age as the cast, a little bit younger. And it was an interesting show to watch. I think it was very well made. Obviously adapted from the original book by Candice Bushell. But there we are. Right, so that is everything cleaned and brushed. Next job is do the polish. Okay, so because these are all stacked in the order that we've just done them, I'm going to do them in that order going back, so that'll be absolutely fine. Now this one obviously is pretty much newish condition, so we're not going to need to do a lot on this. Very, very high quality production, this one. It really was. But these older ones will require a little bit more attention. So, for the time being then, I should be absolutely fine to do one video a week. However, the one after this is the first week where I might struggle a little bit. So don't panic though. If you don't see it, as I said, I've committed to keeping the channel going for the time being, and it just may be that occasionally for a short time, I go to twice weekly, but my suspicion is that because the videos are generally so long, you've probably got plenty that you've never ever watched. So if you go back over the backlist, if you're craving any, then that should be fine, you know. And there's always going to be content on my other channel, although once again that is going to reduce a little bit by about a video a week, so nothing too serious, but I'll keep up with all my regular stuff as best I can until I've got through this new job training, and then I'll be it'll be back to normal again. So this Radio 1 annual's made a huge difference, it really has. It's come up very, very clean. Yeah, quite a bit of dirt come off that in actual fact. But a lot of it you couldn't really see, but that's sort of come up really, really nice, hasn't it? Really nice and bright. So that's cool, that's cool. Can't imagine this needs very much, because once again it's a modern one. But I will give it the once over, because I have read it a few times. Sometimes the top edge as well can use a little bit of a wipe, as was the case with this one in actual fact. Sometimes you'll buy a book brand new in a bookshop, and it might have, you know, someone's been through it a few times in the shop, you know. When I had my shop, you'd often get people who would come in and browse, and they'd never, ever, ever buy anything, and they'd be the worst sort of punter. I remember when I managed a bookshop in Newton Abbot, there was a guy who would come in, and he worked in the local fish factory, so he stunk. It wasn't his fault, it was just, you know, where he worked was particularly stinky, you know, and it was that awful sort of fish smell. And he would come in at the very end of the day. You'd be like looking to pack up and get everyone out by 5:30, and he'd be there looking for something, and he'd never ever buy anything, and you'd have to say to him, time to go, mate, you know. There's always one in there. Well, that one's actually come up lovely. I suspect I'd already given that one a clean, but a second clean did not hurt. £3.50 that was. What a great book it is. Oh. Here's my Mission Impossible. Our mission, should we decide to accept it, is to clean these mid-alphabet books. Now, looking ahead, next week, what have we got planned? I'm just trying to think now. I've got the next sort of couple of months planned, if all goes, you know, to plan, and I can squeeze the videos in. So I believe next week is the turn of, it's a Penguin one. I think it's going to be my last tail end Puffin storybooks, I think is what's coming up next weekend. And what I'm going to do with these large format is I'm going to do a large format video every other week, or every other like cleaning video, because there's lots to go through. And even when I've done all these hardbacks here, I've got lots of hardback fiction to do, which once again I think the easiest way is just to approach it in strict chronological order. I'll start at A with my Kingsley Amis books and work my way through to sort of PG Woodhouse, you know. Although there are other sections, so all my non-fiction, God, this is disgusting, this one, all my non-fiction hardbacks, you know, sort of regular sized hardbacks, they're sort of kept separately. So they'll start with, we've already done all the Churchills, but we'll start with Anthony Beevor and his military history books. That's looking a lot better, and work our way along. So we've got, those will probably be one, maybe two videos to do that lot. Then we've got my art books as well, so that's another sort of separate one. Oh, I know what I've got scheduled to be put in is my Doctor Who books, so my Doctor Who paperbacks, of which there are many. So I think we can do them all in one video. I think we'd be okay to do them, because those were amongst the first books that I started trying to clean as I was getting the collection together. And I'm planning some new Doctor Who content on my main channel, where I go through the Doctor Who books literally year by year. And I'd like to check over the books and make sure the ones that I've got are in as good a condition as possible before I start that new series. Look at the dirt we've got off those, look at that. So yeah, so look out for the Doctor Who books quite soon. I think they'll be absolutely fine to film. Yeah, these are pretty cool annuals, these Mission Impossible ones. I wouldn't mind upgrading them all, because none of them are really mint. I think it's because I just had them, you know, for years and years, literally decades, and I've never, my standards when I pick up this sort of stuff nowadays is much higher. And I wouldn't, like that previous annual, the 72, I wouldn't have even touched that in the last 20 years. But I think historically, because I've had it so long, that's why I've probably been happy with the sort of the lower grade copy, as it were, you know. This one's really coming up. So you see all the sort of the mottled mess around the black here, and that just lifts up completely. Look how shiny that is now. What a difference that's made to that one. And because these have got nice glossy covers, you can just spray your polish straight on with nothing to fear with regards, you know, doing any damage to the book. There we are. I think the first season of Mission Impossible is a bit underrated, in all honesty. I think there's some really great stories in there. And the main guy, and I can't for the life of me remember his name, you know, I thought he did really well leading the team, but apparently the actor in real life was very, very difficult to work with. And I think he was, he had a religion which required him every sort of few hours to go off and pray, and that was quite difficult to work with when I guess you were making a TV show. So consequently, although he got that big role in Mission Impossible, which was a huge series and very, very expensive to make, ultimately it looks as if he didn't keep the role because he was very, very difficult to work with. So I think that's quite interesting. I doubt that sort of thing would ever happen today. They'd just make accommodation for it, wouldn't they? But back then, in the early 1960s, when Mission Impossible started, you know, it was just not tolerated, I guess, which, you know, you just wouldn't believe that these days, of course. But there you go. So that, I think, is what they get at in that the Mission Impossible Chronicles book. They sort of detail that, and they say, you know, it was just impossible. And also, the cost of the series at the time, it was one of the most expensive series on TV to be made. It cost an absolute fortune. One good thing you can do with Mission Impossible is, because it was filmed basically side by side with on the Delhi. Is it? Well, it was not the Paramount set. It was Delhi Studios, wasn't it? And at the time Mission Impossible was being filmed, they were also filming Star Trek. And quite often you see Star Trek actors turn up on Mission Impossible. And of course, once Star Trek had finished, Leonard Nimoy joined the regular cast of Mission Impossible once Martin Landau had left. And he played Rollin Hand, didn't he, Martin Landau? Right, now these we're going to need to take, I'm not going to spray any polish on. I'm going to carefully rub around Robert Vaughan's signature. in the hope that we can get the books looking a little bit tidier than they are. But there's obviously no way I'm going to be getting rid of these because they are the signed ones, of course. Be okay to spray the back. But this was quite a rough copy in all honesty. But once again, back in the day, this was given to Robert Vaughan to sign long before the days of eBay. So this was just the best copy that I'd come my way at the time we had that opportunity. I couldn't have just jumped online and ordered a really nice copy from somewhere, because that just wasn't possible. A little bit of the lamination coming off there, but to be honest, it's about as good as it's going to get. I said I don't want to put polish straight on it because it will just wreck the signature. Now this one I got later on, so this is not signed at all, and nothing to worry about with this one, except just giving it a normal clean. Yes, I'm quite excited to be digging out the old Doctor Who paperbacks. That'll be pretty cool. I've always been a massive fan of them. Massive fan. And any sort of Doctor Who content goes down well on my main channel. One of my best friends, we shared his 60s Doctor Who collection recently, and that was fantastic. And I hope to be able to share his 70s stuff soon. There we are. Not perfect, but not bad. The old cloth's come in for a bit of a beating though, so I'm going to swap it round and turn it. So we're going to be doing it on that side instead now. And this was fresh out the washing machine today. Now that one's signed, so I'm just going to cover it and put a little bit of polish in that corner, and then completely ignore where the signature is, so there's no risk of damaging it at all. There we are. That does actually look quite a bit better than it did. Big, thick, robust books, these, and it was very much of the time that they were made, and I do love them. There we are. Good stuff. Right, let's get the next pile sorted. Right, the last couple of annuals now. So that's got some wear there, or sticker mark. So I'm going to spray carefully in the corner and then go all around the signature, but not actually touch it. Definitely got a bit of a dirty spine there as well. That's looking a bit better. Yeah, lots of dirt on that spine. In fact, it looked a bit like nicotine staining. There we go. I think that's about as good as we're going to get that one. Similar situation with this spine. It's yellow, but I think it's like nicotine staining. So it does come off with a little bit of perseverance. There we are. Yeah, pretty horrible stuff. These older annuals, they are so much more susceptible to that sort of level of abuse and dirt and wear. The older they are, potentially the more they've been through. So we see it, don't we, with the other books and paperbacks and stuff. But that will look so much better on the shelf now that it's been cleaned properly, you know. Like all black books, they pick up the slightest bit of dirt very, very easily. So these very much benefiting from the attention. Lovely, that's looking good. And the last Uncle book here, which is also the first one. That's got lots of wear in the logo there, so I'll just give that a bit of a dedicated wipe. Actually, much more wear on this one than was at first evident, you know. But it's cleaning up, it's coming up all right. I suppose you have to remember that these books are almost 50 years old now. I think that's about as good as that's going to get. Yeah, even a few marks on the back here that I didn't really notice when we first went through them, but nothing too serious, of course, you know, but hopefully the polish is doing its work, giving them a little bit of a lightening. Yeah, I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Cool. Now, this Jet Annual, I think is absolutely fine. We'll give it a polish anyway, but it looks a real minter, actually. Really, really nice condition. Very nostalgic for me. I don't have hundreds of annuals because I just don't have the room for them, but I used to. I used to have a lot more than I've got now. And there's some I'd like to get back, but I think that boat has been and gone now, like trying to get a set of the Doctor Who annuals. I don't really need them or, you know, require them in my life. So, you know, unless they sort of happen to fall my way cheap, I just won't bother with them. Yeah, that Jet Annual, that's a real beauty, that. Very, very pleased with that one. Very nice condition indeed. Now the Alex Lagar book, the Blue Peter one, that's absolutely fine. That doesn't need any polish because it's not of a historical nature. And these Blue Peter ones I don't think are going to need much, except literally just a cursory once over. I don't think any of them have. I mean, they to me they seem brand new, so we'll just give all the edges a little wipe as we close in on the end of the video. So I hope you've enjoyed it today. There's a little bit of dirt on that one. It's not been a bad little mix, perhaps not as good as some large format videos. It's just the way that they come in the alphabet, so I can't like just cherry pick. I have to do everything eventually, of course, so that's what it has to be. But I think you'll agree it was not a bad little selection today. Not so many movie books, was there, like I've had in the past, but boy, I've got loads coming up. I've got loads and loads coming up. One of these videos will just be large format Star Wars books, of which I've got a whole shelf full of them, and there's all the British annuals, of which there was miles more than you might think. All the British storybooks, making of sketchbooks, I mean, blimey. So that'll be a Star Wars special coming up fairly soon. But the start of the next lot that we've got is Sherlock Holmes. So that is something to look forward to next time we do one of these. The old Granada Sherlock Holmes series. Yeah, these aren't too bad at all. Just the little once over, just to see if there's any other marks on them, which is very, very, very minor. Little marks here and there, but else they're absolute minters. So yeah, I suppose it would be quite nice to get the full set of the, well, I've got the full set of the Blue Peters, but to get the early ones in really, really top shape. It's just number one is tricky. And then there are quite a few spin-off Blue Peter books as well. Some of them are paperbacks, which are tough to find nowadays. They used to be really plentiful, but I haven't seen them on my travels for quite a long time. I think Blue Peter is starting to disappear from the public consciousness because it's just not on TV anymore. So people, youngsters today, don't even know what Blue Peter is. You know, they have no memory of it. Yeah, you know, it was such a stalwart on British TV for so long, you know. Yet that time has been and gone. Alas, that is progress for you. just little bits of handling wear really on these, nothing serious at all. They're really not. But this one had a little bit more than some of the other ones, so it was worth just giving it the extra bit of attention. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be back next week with another video as normal. Should be absolutely fine with a bit of luck, but I have got a hell of a busy week, so if I can stay on top of it, I will. But if not, don't be surprised if we don't get a video next week. But it won't be through lack of time. It will be lack of time. It will just be not through lack of will. It will just be I ran out of time, and that's how it goes. But not to worry. Not to worry. Just maybe go back and watch one of the older videos instead. Brilliant. Last one then. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please, once again, if you've not already, hit that subscribe button for virtually regular cleaning content. And I shall do my very best to see you again soon. There we go. Bye.